Hey y'all, Joe of all trades, bringing to you another flick pick, and what I'm talking about today is 1986's Manhunter. I think this is an awesome film. I think some people know about it, not a whole lot of people know about it. If you are a Hannibal Lecter, Silence of the Lambs fan, and you haven't seen this, you absolutely need to see it. It's just great. It is was not really all that well received. It did not make its budget when it was initially released, but has since become a cult classic. And it's, I love this movie. I this might be a hot take, but for me, Silence of the Lambs is obviously 1A, but this is 1B. I mean, it is a fantastic movie. I love watching it every time, and I want to talk to you guys about it. So let's get into the details. First, it was produced and distributed by the De Laurentiis Entertainment Group, kind of prolific, you know, kind of production company of the 80s. Very, I think, really first to push VHS and that sort of stuff. So, kind of a oddball 80s tastic production company. This movie was written and directed by Michael Mann. Now, if you are into movies or have lived, in the 1980s and beyond, you probably should know who Michael Mann is. He is known for creating, developing Miami Vice. He's also directed Heat, Last of the Mohicans, The Insider, which was nominated for a bunch of Oscars, won a bunch of Oscars, Ali, Collateral, also. I think his first film was 1981. It was Thief, starring James Caan. Also awesome film. This guy has just given so much to the film community. With the addition of color, stylization, music. It's just it can't be overstated the impact that Michael Mann has had on the development and modernization of TV and film. So awesome. Introductory facts. I want to get into this. So this movie was adapted from the book Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. Thomas Harris is the author of all the books within the Hannibal Lecter series. This is the first one in that series. It takes place before Silence of the Lambs. And you might be asking yourself, there's a movie already called Red Dragon. And there is. It's from 2002. It's starring Edward Norton. Anthony Hopkins reprises his role as Dr. Hannibal Lecter. Ray Fiennes plays Francis Dolarhyde in that movie. And it's directed by Brett Ratner. The reason why that film is called Red Dragon and this film is not called Red Dragon is in 1986, the production company was concerned that Red Dragon would sound like a martial arts film. And for that, they came up with the name title Manhunter, about a detective who is using his knowledge and skill to hunt down a man, serial killer, whatever. It's fitting. It's not great. Michael Mann did not like it. I much preferred Red Dragon based on the story. But it became Manhunter, and the 2002 movie was made probably. It was a money grab. It's plain and simple. Is that they've got this movie made in 1986. It doesn't really have any ties to Silence of the Lambs. It's a different Hannibal Lecter. It's the stylization, the filmmaking. It's two very different styles between Jonathan Demme and Michael Mann. That being said, Red Dragon is a far inferior film, regardless of whether it's making money, regardless of its impeccable cast. It's just inferior. Brett Ratner is kind of a director that is used to try to make money on simple things like trying to recreate Jonathan Demme's style, having all awesome cast come back. It's just an inferior film. It looks like it's trying to be a carbon copy of Silence of the Lambs, and it misses the mark. Red Dragon is better than Hannibal, I'll give you that, or Hannibal Rising. I would probably rank it third in the Hannibal Lecter movies, but at a far away two. Whereas I think Manhunter is 1B behind Silence of the Lambs. So this movie, starring William Peterson as Will Graham, the FBI agent. He's also known for To Live and Die in L.A. It's a fantastic film. It will be featured on Flick Picks at a later date. Also, there is he's the dad. He's Reese Witherspoon's dad in Fear. He's well known for that. But I think his most prolific role has been as like the main character on CSI. Sorry, I'm not a CSI person, but I know he was on that show for many, many years and was well renowned for that role and what CSI has done for television and stuff like that. But this movie, he's absolutely incredible, and we'll get into it. Tom Noonan plays the main antagonist, Francis Dolarhyde. He Tom Noonan's got a kind of has an interesting face. He's tall, slender, has an imposing figure, and he's well known as playing like a movie bad guy, movie creep, that sort of thing. He's also in, I can remember from my childhood, Last Action Hero, as like, Jack the Ripper or something like that. He's well known, he plays these types of roles. But we kind of talk about his take on portraying Francis Dolarhyde later, and I think he seems like he's a very sweet guy from what I've read, and how he plays the character is very interesting in that kind of sense. Dennis Farina plays the head of the FBI Behavioral Crime Unit, Jack Crawford. Dennis Farina, he's that guy. He's in a ton of different stuff. He's mostly known for playing cops or wise guys. Miami Vice, Midnight Run, Get Shorty. My personal favorite from my childhood was he was the mean skipper of the Minnesota Twins in Little Big League. He's a frequent collaborator with Michael Mann. He's a former Chicago police detective before, I think, utilizing his experiences and then, and kind of bringing that to the table and getting in front of the camera. Brian Cox plays Dr. Hannibal Lecter, and you might know him from Super Troopers, being the voice of McDonald's at the current time, and then in addition, a ton of different movies and television shows. Just a really prolific actor. Kim Greist plays the wife of Will Graham. She's fantastic in this movie. So it's a really, really great cast on top of being a great filmmaker, and it absolutely does the movie service. It's just altogether fantastic cast, and their portrayals are riveting, to say the least. So, budget of this movie was $15 million. It made $8.6 million at the box office. The synopsis, I would basically say, is, Will Graham is an FBI criminal profiler. He's called out of early retirement to assist on a serial murder case involving a killer known as the Tooth Fairy. Graham enlists the help of an imprisoned serial killer and cannibal Dr. Hannibal Lecter, who is the reason why Graham took an early retirement. Soon, Graham and the FBI are entangled in a deadly cat and mouse game between the Tooth Fairy, Lecter, and an interfering journalist. The reception to this film, it was released to mixed reviews. Most of the criticism of the movie was overly stylized for the story. And I can see why they may say that. I think Michael Mann was trying to impute his style into the 80s, where, you may see it on Miami Vice, you may see it in TV, but in suburban American homes, things were still brown, orange, yellow, like that, like sage green. So I can see why perhaps someone might say that this movie is overly stylized, but personally, I think it's a time capsule of the 80s. So I find it stunning, and the colors are trying to match certain moods or certain messages, what the movie's trying to tell you. So personally, I like it a lot. The film in recent circles has been considered more of a cult classic, and like I said before, it's a time capsule of the time, and I it's pretty cool. So my personal notes on this film: I think that this film is criminally underrated in every aspect. Um, Everything about it is just compelling and riveting to me. Every time I watch it, I find something new that really grabs my eye and grabs my attention. I could watch this 10, 15 more times and still be looking for new things and find them. So, um, the acting performances are world class from everybody. Um, Will Peterson, I did not appreciate the actor that he was. I just thought he was some CSI primetime major network television star, and most of those shows aren't very good. So I just thought he was kind of a cheesy actor. In this movie, not to play spoiler, but there are particular scenes that are absolutely riveting for him, and since um, since seeing this movie originally, I've moved on to watch other things starring Will Peterson, including To Live and Die in L.A. And I just have found out that this guy's awesome. Um, Dennis Farina, just plays classic Farina, just kind of this no nonsense kind of forward guy, but he's also doing it with kind of a cerebral approach. Being head of the behavioral crime unit of the FBI, he doesn't do that in other roles. He doesn't really have to be cerebral, but he is in this, and it's just an additional element that I find really interesting. Um, Brian Cox, I mean, as Lecter, um, he's no Anthony Hopkins. Let's not get shit twisted, but I mean, he's incredibly charismatic as Lecter. He's not as much of a ghoul as Hopkins is. Um, you can't come into this movie comparing Brian Cox to Anthony Hopkins. You just have to respect each role for or each actor's portrayal of Lecter as it is. Um, and again, another hot take. I'd probably rather watch Brian Cox as Lecter in Manhunter than Hopkins as Lecter in Red Dragon. Um, I think in Red Dragon, Anthony Hopkins is kind of becoming a caricature of Dr. Lecter from Silence of the Lambs. Not surprised with Brett Ratner's direction that happened, but um, it's just not as entertaining to me. Um, the visualized, or the stylized visuals, the colors, the score, everything about his classic Michael Mann. He's trying to tell you something by not what's just being said, but what the colors are, what lighting is doing. Every aspect of what you're taking in on the screen is a part of telling the story and not just what people are saying. So I would pay attention to that and try to understand. It's, once you watch it more and more and more and figure it out, it's awesome. Um, I feel like this movie could take place in the universe of Miami Vice, but it doesn't necessarily have like the rock music or streetwise dialogue. So I always find that interesting. If you haven't seen Miami Vice, I highly recommend watching it. It's usually streaming on at least some platform service, and I mean it. Once you watch it, it happened 40 years ago, or even 40 years ago. It cannot be said enough what an impact it had on television. So I highly suggest watching that. Just all in all, everything that's being brought to you in this movie, I just think it's fantastic. But I want to go through some other fun facts. So, David Lynch was actually set to direct this. but he found the film to be violent and completely degenerate. I wouldn't go that far, um, but David Lynch, another fantastic director, and good for him. He missed out on it, and Michael Mann did it, and this movie's awesome. Um, William Peterson, he spoke to the investigators on the Richard Ramirez case about how they coped with the effects of dealing with these disturbing cases and how they dealt with it in their family lives and that sort of thing. So that's really interesting. Michael Mann spent time with the FBI's behavioral crime unit in preparation of the script and film, so that's also very cool. Wouldn't expect any less from Michael Mann getting the background story. John Lithgow, William Friedkin, and Brian Dennehy were all considered for the role of Hannibal Lecter, but Brian Cox was ultimately cast. That was at the recommendation of Brian Dennehy. It's kind of interesting to think, how those roles might have been played out in terms of John Lithgow, local Bookdale alum from the Akron area. If you didn't know that, he's played a great bad guy, Cliffhanger, other Lord Farquhar. That would be pretty interesting. Ricochet, that's another great bad guy role for John Lithgow. William Friedkin, who's the director of The Exorcist and To Live and Die in L.A., that would have been also writer and director of Exorcist Part 3, which may or may not be on Flick Pick, but that's also a very interesting film. That would be pretty. It'd be pretty interesting to see him in the role. And then Brian Dennehy, obviously coming off of FX, First Blood. Would probably be he's a great actor. I don't know how well he could play such a evil person. In First Blood, I think he's a bad guy, but he plays a bad guy maybe with a wrong and good intentions at heart. But yeah. So for the role of Will Graham, the production company had expressed interest in Richard Gere, Mel Gibson, and Paul Newman. But Michael Mann, having seen the footage of William Peterson in To Live and Die in L.A., really pulled for Peterson to get the part, and he ended up doing it. So that's also interesting. I think Richard Gere would probably be pretty good in this film. I wouldn't doubt it. I think Peterson's incredible. I can't see anybody else doing it, but I think Richard Gere would be pretty good. Mel Gibson might be a little too little bit too animated, thinking about Martin Riggs and Lethal Weapon, that sort of thing. I think he might be a little too animated for this role. And then Paul Newman, this is 1986. He's doing Color of Money, was I think the year before, and The Verdict, 1981. So, those were his great pieces of the 80s. I just can't see him. And sorry, Paul. God rest your soul. Also, Shaker Heights native. I just can't see him at his age playing this role as well as Peterson could. And what's also, lastly, super interesting is the fact that Peterson had trouble kind of shedding this character in later work. And when you watch the movie, you will see how life can imitate art. And you watch this movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. So it's currently streaming on Amazon Prime, Peacock, and YouTube TV. If you're subscribed to that, I highly recommend watching this movie. Turn the lights off, and I would say watch it in the dark, because then the colors that are on the screen will kind of bleed into your room, and I think it will have a much greater impact on your cinematic experience. So take a watch. If you like this video, please like, comment, share, subscribe. It's Joe of All Trades. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, now on Twitter as well. That's Joe underscore of all trades. That's the handle on Twitter. All that information will be in the description box below. If you would like to make a recommendation, please leave one for another movie. Please leave one in the comment section below, or you can email me at joeofalltrades.content@gmail.com. All right, thanks all. Take care. Bye.